WWE Monday Night RAW results January 17, 2022. Tonight's WWE RAW opens up on the USA Network live from the Box Center in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Jimmy Smith welcomes us to a packed house. He's joined at ringside by Corey Graves and Byron Saxton. Jimmy hypes the road to the Royal Rumble. We go right to the ring and out comes Raw Women's Champion Becky Lynch. The announcers hype tonight's Raw lineup as Lynch hits the ring to pose for the crowd. We see how Lynch helped Doudrop win last week's #1 contenders triple threat for a title shot at the Royal Rumble, and how Lynch slapped Doudrop after the match but had her manhandle slam blocked before retreating to the floor. Lynch welcomes us to the big time. She says we're less than 2 weeks from the Rumble and the Raw Women's division has never been hotter, and she's responsible for that. The division is so hot we have stars from older generations coming back, including WWE Hall of Famers Lita and the Bella Twins, and Mickie James, all hoping they can win and then challenge Lynch at WrestleMania 38. Lynch says WWE needs her because she makes stars, just look at Doudrop. Lynch goes on about Doudrop and how she got Doudrop the title match because that's what she does, she makes people better and then beats them. Lynch does admire Doudrop's tenacity, but not really. She goes on but the music interrupts and out comes Doudrop. Doudrop circles the ring and stares Lynch down before entering. Doudrop says Lynch didn't get her anything, she got herself this title match at Royal Rumble, but if it was Lynch's plan to face Doudrop instead of the others, then she's made a big mistake. Doudrop warns Lynch to stay out of her way tonight. Lynch says if Doudrop follows her lead, she will get her another win this week. The music interrupts and out comes Bianca Belair. Belair announces that she will be in the Rumble and says she will win again this year, like last year, and will go back to WrestleMania and just might challenge Lynch or Doudrop. Belair goes on until the music interrupts and out comes Liv Morgan. Morgan says she is also entering the Rumble, but she will be the one to win. Liv goes on with her promo but Doudrop drops a loud snore into the mic, saying Belair and Morgan are boring. Doudrop calls for a referee so she can shut them both up. The referee hits the ring and a scuffle breaks out as we go to commercial. Raw Women's Champion Becky Lynch and Doudrop vs Liv Morgan and Bianca Belair back from the break and we see Raw Tag Team Champions Alpha Academy backstage warming up for their graduation ceremony later tonight. We go back to the ring and the tag team match with Liv Morgan and Bianca Belair vs Doudrop and Raw Women's Champion Becky Lynch is underway. Belair tangles with Doudrop and a suplex attempt is blocked. Belair keeps fighting but Doudrop levels her. Lynch tags herself in and Doudrop isn't happy as they have words. Lynch keeps talking trash but turns around to a drop kick by Belair. Morgan tags in and unloads on the champ, leveling her with a drop kick. Liv with a high knee strike in the corner. Becky runs into a back elbow and Liv follows up with a missile drop kick from the top. Liv keeps control and nails double knees to the face for a really close 2 count as Doudrop runs in for the save. Belair attacks Doudrop but can't get her up for KOD. Doudrop sends Belair into the turnbuckles. Doudrop goes on until Liv dumps her over the top rope to the floor. Becky comes from behind and rolls Liv for 2. Liv and Becky trade offense now. Becky nails the manhandle slam out of nowhere for a close 2 count as Doudrop runs in and nails a splash to Liv and Becky to break Kit up. Doudrop goes for a pin but she's not legal. She goes over and lifts Becky's arm to tag herself in. Doudrop then comes back over and hits the big splash to Liv for the pin to win. Winners, Doudrop and Becky Lynch. After the match, Doudrop goes to the second rope and nails the big Banzai drop to Lynch. We go to replays. Doudrop taunts Becky and talks some trash while she's down. Reggie and WWE 24/7 champion Dana Brooke are backstage with WWE Hall of Famers Edge and Beth Phoenix. Reggie asks Edge for some pointers against Omos tonight. Edge doesn't think Reggie has a chance but he wishes him good luck. Beth tells Dana she's so proud of her hard work, and the fact that she is a champion after working hard these years. Reggie runs off and Brooke chases after him. Beth and Edge walk away and Edge greets WWE United States Champion Damian Priest, who wants to pick Edge's brain about the Royal Rumble match. Edge is giving Priest some advice when a staffer walks up and hands a note to Phoenix. It's a note from Maryse, who wants to meet her in the ring, woman to woman. She says that's suspicious and Edge agrees. Edge says he's coming with her. They walk off and Kevin Owens approaches Priest, saying he's looking forward to their match tonight. Priest isn't buying what Owens is saying, about looking forward to a good, clean match to show off their technical sides. Owens says he has an announcement to go make, so he will see Priest later. We go back to the ring and out comes Kevin Owens for another must-see episode of the Kevin Owens Show. Back to commercial. Back from the break and Owens is in the ring. He welcomes us to the Kevin Owens Show and says he would like to say he's glad to be in Tulsa, but that would be a vile lie because this place is bad. Owens goes on and introduces his best friend, who will become WWE Universal Champion after defeating Roman Reigns at the Royal Rumble. Owens continues with the grand introduction and out comes Seth Rollins. We get a look back at what happened on SmackDown with Rollins and the Bloodline as he enters the ring. Owens takes the mic and welcomes Rollins, and goes on about how much he admires Rollins for his look, his suits, and also for how she went to SmackDown and confronted Reigns last week. Owens says Rollins is the guy who set the table. Rollins says truth is, Reigns is rattled, a little nervous, and scared. Rollins goes on and says he's playing chess while Reigns is playing checkers, and it will be like taking candy from a baby at the Royal Rumble if Reigns keeps it up. Rollins reveals he will turn the WWE Universal title back to red if he wins it. Owens and Rollins go on about the match until Owens has some big news to reveal. Owens announces his spot in the 30-man Royal Rumble. Owens says he and Rollins get to give fans the biggest match ever, for the Universal title. Rollins seems hesitant at first but they are on the same page when the music interrupts and out comes WWE United States Champion Damian Priest, telling them to shut up. Priest says not one person on the planet thinks Rollins can defeat Reigns at the Royal Rumble. Priest goes on with trash talking from the stage and says he just spoke with Sonya Deville and Adam Pearce, who ruled that their match starts right now. We go back to commercial. WWE United States Champion Damian Priest vs Kevin Owens back from the break and we get a new coming soon vignette for Veer Mahan. We go back to the ring and the bell rings as WWE United States Champion Damian Priest locks up with Kevin Owens to begin this non-title match. Priest works on Owens' arm and Owens turns it around. They run the ropes and Priest levels Owens with a big shot, turning him inside out. Priest with a big kick from the apron. Owens comes back and drops Priest over the top rope, then stops away. Owens grounds Priest from behind and ends up chopping away. Priest takes them and just starts seething now as Owens pleads. Priest unloads and Owens retreats to the floor. Priest follows as the referee counts. Priest runs around and leaps at Owens but Owens nails him in the jaw with a super kick in mid-air. Owens goes to the apron and flies off with a big frog splash. Owens stands tall and yells out while Priest is flat on his back at ringside. We go back to commercial. Back from the break and Priest mounts a comeback as Owens misses a shot. Priest lifts Owens and drops him face first into the mat. Priest charges with the stage dive into the corner. Owens goes on and rocks Priest but Priest levels him with a big clothesline. Priest goes on and hits a broken arrow for a close 2 count. Priest beats Owens around and takes him back to the top. Owens fights back with punches and headbutts but Priest also fights back. Owens blocks a superplex and headbutts Priest to the mat. Owens follows up with a big senton for a close 2 count. Priest kicks out and Owens can't believe it. Priest blocks a stunner, and another. Owens blocks the reckoning but comes back with a big pop-up powerbomb in the middle of the ring. Priest still kicks out and Owens shows some frustration. Priest with a big kick to the head as they get back to their feet. Priest comes right back with South of Heaven chokeslam but Owens kicks out just in time. Priest can't believe it now. Owens is selling a hurt leg due to the chokeslam. He goes down on the leg as it gives out as Priest tries to whip him across the ring. The referee checks on Owens and calls for a trainer as fans boo. Owens is just suckering Priest in to drop him with a stunner out of nowhere for the pin to win. Winner, Kevin Owens. After the match, Owens quickly exits the ring and laughs as his music hits. Owens looks on from the ramp as Priest tries to recover in the ring. We see how Alpha Academy won the Raw Tag Team titles from RK-Bro last week. We go back to the ring and Pomp and Circumstance plays, but this is no tribute to WWE Hall of Famer Randy Savage. New Raw Tag Team champions Otis and Chad Gable appear on the ramp. They head to the ring for a special graduation ceremony as we go back to commercial. Back from the break and the announcers hype Bobby Lashley vs Seth Rollins for tonight. We also see how Nikki A.S.H turned heel on Ria Ripley last week. Nikki is backstage with Sarah Schreiber now. She says she stands on her own now and feels great about the future and how everything went down. She blames Ripley for what happened last week, and says she should be down and out after what happened. Nikki says Ripley flushed their relationship down the drain. Nikki goes on and snaps at Schreiber for saying she caused the breakup last week, blaming it all on Ripley. Nikki also says she is the closest thing to a hero that the people of Tulsa will ever have. She says almost superheroes have to do things normal people don't understand, and Ripley will realize she needs an almost superhero, whether she likes it or not. We go back to the ring and Raw Tag Team champions Alpha Academy are in the ring for a graduation ceremony. They're wearing cap and gowns, and there's a podium with some fake plants and their titles on display. Gable brags about his recent real-life graduation and then knocks the people of Oklahoma. Gable says tonight is about celebration, the celebration of not just an institution, but an individual. Gable says he could go on talking about his long list of achievements, but this is about a man who overcame the odds. He's talking about his prized pupil, his protege, Otis. Gable is so proud of Otis. He talks about how Otis applied the final lessons from the master, and decimated Randy Orton and Riddle. Gable says tonight it is his esteemed honor and great pleasure to present to us. Fans start chanting for RK-Bro. Gable goes on and presents Otis with the highest graduating honors. Pomp and Circumstances starts up again as Gable congratulates Otis. He steps up to the podium and thanks Gable, then says he has a warning to issue. Otis says they will bring nothing but pure carnage to anyone who messes with their titles or the Alpha Academy. They're never stopping and won't stop. The music interrupts and out comes Riddle, also wearing a cap and gown. Riddle does some comedy and says he had to come out and give a very special speech, which he wrote at the breakfast buffet this morning. Riddle says it felt like just last week when he and Randy were champions, just a couple of young, wild stallions running free, but today is graduation day and their lives will change forever. He goes on but Gable yells at him, asking why he's here and what he's talking about. Gable knocks Riddle and the people of Oklahoma, and tells Riddle to be on his way. Riddle says he actually came out to say how proud he is of Alpha Academy, and their giant necks. Gable assumes Riddle is here for a rematch but he's not even sure Riddle can define the word. Riddle struggles to define the word and tries some more comedy. Riddle finally says a rematch sounds like a pretty sick idea. Gable says it's no wonder Orton left Riddle high and dry. Gable laughs at Riddle for Orton leaving him and not being here tonight. Gable says Riddle has to prove he's worthy for a rematch in an academic challenge. Gable says this will be a series of tests between the two teams, to prove which is superior mentally. Gable says they've already proved who is physically superior. Riddle goes on running his mouth and rambling. Otis has heard enough, and he's ready to fight. He takes off his robe and slowly walks up the ramp, trash-talking Riddle. Orton hits the ring out of nowhere and drops Gable with the RKO. Otis turns back to go to the ring but Riddle runs down to ringside and attacks him for a pop. Riddle hits the ring and helps Orton put on the cap and gown Otis previously had on. Orton says they accept the challenge while Otis is tending to Gable at ringside. We go to replays as Alpha Academy looks on from the stage and RK-Bro poses in the corners. We see recent happenings between Austin Theory and Finn Balor. We go backstage and Theory enters the office of WWE Chairman and CEO Vince McMahon, and thanks him for this rematch tonight. Vince was watching their last match on a TV in his office, which Balor won. Theory vows to win this one and recalls how he beat Balor up after the last match, calling it almost a half-win. Vince says those do not exist. He wants Theory to win and beat Balor up tonight, and if he doesn't, Vince himself will beat Theory up. Vince says he will drag Theory back to his office, break every bone in his body, then go for his head and face, and leave him with nothing but blood and teeth. Then when that's done, Vince says he will take a selfie with Theory's beaten body and send it to Theory's mother. Finn Balor vs Austin Theory. We go back to the ring and out comes Finn Balor to a pop. Balor poses in the corners as we go back to commercial. Back from the break and we get a video tribute to Martin Luther King, Jr. We go back to the ring and out comes Austin Theory, who is all business. Balor looks on from the ring as Theory hits the ring. We see more recent happenings between the two. The bell rings and they go at it. Theory sends Balor out first and follows as the referee counts. Balor reverses an attempt and sends Theory into the barrier. Balor puts Theory down as we go back to commercial. Back from the break and the fight is back in the ring now. Balor keeps control and delivers a big chop to the chest in the corner. They trade counters and Balor drops Theory face first for a close 2 count. Balor has Theory on the apron now, but Theory drops him over the top rope. Balor comes back with a sling blade out of nowhere. Theory blocks the follow-up and overpowers Balor. Theory goes for the ATL but it's blocked with a roll-up for a close 2 count. Balor fights back from the apron, dropping Theory with an enziguri. Balor goes to the top for coup de grace but Theory moves. Theory with a big drop kick to the face. Theory scoops Balor for the ATL and this time he nails it for the pin to win in the middle of the ring. Winner, Austin Theory. After the match, Theory stands tall as the music hits and we go to replays. Theory grabs his phone and stands over Balor for a selfie now as some fans boo. Theory immediately mounts Balor and starts pounding him, then delivers another ATL. Theory goes on talking trash as the boos continue. Theory stands up and wipes his feet to disrespect Balor while he's down. Theory makes his exit. We get another replay of what happened between Ria Ripley and Nikki Ash last week. Ripley is backstage warming up when Sarah Schreiber approaches and asks her thoughts on Nikki's earlier comments, saying the breakup was all Ripley's fault. Ripley says she never intended on breaking up their friendship, they could have supported their solo careers, but Nikki made up her mind. Ripley doesn't forgive easy, but what kind of person attacks their friends? Ripley says Nikki is more delusional than she thought if she thinks Ripley is the villain here. Ripley goes on and says she's headed out to remind everyone who she really is. She walks off. Rhea Ripley vs Nikki Ash. We go back to the ring and out comes Rhea Ripley. She makes her entrance and we go back to commercial. Back from the break and out comes Nikki Ash. She faces off with her former tag team partner. The music interrupts and out comes WWE Women's Tag Team Champions Queen Zelina Vega and Carmella to the stage. They knock Tulsa and brag about how everything they predicted with Nikki and Ripley has come true. They say Ripley should really be thanking them. They go on trash talking until Nikki attacks Ripley from the side. Nikki beats Ripley down and the bell has not hit yet. Nikki mounts Ripley and keeps her down until Ripley powers up and sends her to the floor. Nikki counters from the apron and sends Ripley to the floor instead. Nikki sends Ripley into the steel ring steps as fans boo now. Nikki poses on the ramp and she's all smiles as the boos continue. Carmella and Vega have already left. We see what happened last week with Omos, Reggie, and WWE 24/7 champion Dana Brooke. Reggie and Dana are backstage now, hyping Reggie up for his match with Omos. Dana keeps talking Reggie up but he's doubting himself against Omos. Dana yells at him and says he is the most capable man she knows. She gives him some more pointers and tells Reggie to just stay away from Omos. They walk off and we see R-Truth, Akira Tozawa, Tamina Snuka, and referees were hiding and eavesdropping, watching popcorn. Truth says Dana must not like Reggie because she just sent him to get got. Omos versus Reggie. We go back to the ring and out comes Omos. Back to commercial. Back from the break and Reggie makes his entrance as Omos looks on. Reggie seems a bit worried as Omos stares him down and the bell rings. Before the action can begin, WWE 24/7 champion Dana Brooke suddenly runs into the ring, crawls under Omos' legs and out the other side of the ring. Akira Tozawa and R-Truth follow her but Omos easily destroys them. The bell rings and Reggie leaps off the top but Omos catches him in a big bear hug. Omos tightens and then turns that into a big choke slam bomb for the easy pin to win. Winner, Omos. After the match, Omos stands tall and looks down at Reggie as the music plays. We see what happened last week between The Miz, Maryse, and WWE Hall of Famers Edge and Beth Phoenix. We go back to the ring now and out comes Maryse by herself. Jimmy says Maryse has been granted time to speak face to face with Phoenix in the ring. We go back to commercial. Back from the break and the announcers hype Seth Rollins versus Bobby Lashley for tonight. We go back to the ring and Maryse is waiting. She gives a shout out to Tulsa, and says her husband The Miz can't be here tonight. She says we all knows her husband has a big mouth and now she has to clean up his mess. Maryse calls Beth to the ring so they can do this face to face, mother to mother. Maryse asks them to stop halfway to the ring. Maryse says the match at the Royal Rumble must be cancelled. Maryse goes on about how no one wants the match. Fans are giving her a hard time and Maryse talks some trash to them. You suck, chant starts up and Maryse continues. Maryse suggests they perform as a unit, as best friends, and not go against each other. Maryse says they should become friends and do playdates with their kids. Beth asks Maryse to just shut up, on behalf of everyone else in the arena. Fans pop. Beth says she's not buying any of this, which tells her Maryse must take acting lessons from her husband. Beth says the match at the Rumble is not being cancelled, and she's not passing up the chance to glam slam Maryse's ass through the canvas. Beth says why don't we give the fans a little preview now? She rushes the ring to a pop. Maryse stares her down. The Miz suddenly appears at ringside to brawl with Edge, but Edge drops him. Maryse takes advantage of the distraction and drops Beth with a loaded purse shot to the head. Maryse retreats from the ring and joins The Miz on the stage as fans boo them. It's revealed that they had a brick loaded in the purse. Edge tends to his wife in the ring while The Miz and Maryse taunt them from the stage. The Street Profits are backstage with the Mysterios now. The two teams get hyped up for tonight's match, and for the 30-man Royal Rumble. The Street Profits and the Mysterios vs. The Dirty Dawgs, Apollo Crews, and Commander Azeez. We go back to the ring and out first are the Street Profits, Montez Ford and Angelo Dawkins. They hit the ring and pose as fans cheer them on. Out next are the Mysterios, Rey Mysterio and Dominic Mysterio. They rush the ring and pose as we go back to commercial. Back from the break and we get a SmackDown replay on Seth Rollins and the Bloodline. We go back to the ring and the Street Profits are getting hyped up with the Mysterios. The Dirty Dawgs, Dolph Ziggler and Robert Roode, are also out. Out last comes Apollo Crews and Commander Azeez. Ziggler and Dominic start things off. Ziggler takes control early on but Dominic drop kicks his leg out. Ziggler comes back with a clothesline and Roode comes in. The Mysterios end up double teaming Roode with a counter. Rey unloads on Roode and nails a Hurricane Rana. Rey leaps off the top at Roode but Roode catches him in mid-air and powers up with him for a powerbomb attempt but it's also blocked. They end up tumbling over the top rope to the floor. Ziggler sends Dominic to the floor. The Mysterios and the Dirty Dawgs are down at ringside as their partners have words in front of the announce table. Back to commercial. Back from the break and Rey is double teamed by Ziggler and Roode. Apollo tags in and hits a standing moonsault on Rey for a 2 count in the middle of the ring. Crews takes his time with Rey now, pressing him high in the air above his head. Ray fights and turns that into a tornado DDT for a pop. Dawkins finally gets the hot tag and he unloads. Dawkins runs wild on all opponents, launching Root over his head with an exploder and then Ziggler with an exploder as he runs in. Dawkins with the twisting elbow in the corner, then the silencer to Cruz for a 2 count as Azeez breaks it up. Ford flies in and drop kicks Azeez to the floor with a shot to the head. The Mysterios take out the Dirty Dogs with a double 619. Azeez catches Dominic in his arms at ringside but Ray leaps from the ring and kicks Azeez over to save Dominic. Cruz and Dawkins trade offense in the ring. Dawkins with the big anointment spinebuster. Ford tags in and flies off the top with a big frog splash for the pin to win. Winners, the Street Profits and the Mysterios. After the match, the babyfaces stand tall as the Profits music hits. The two teams celebrate in the middle of the ring until Ray and Dominic come from behind and dump the Profits over the top rope to the floor. Ray then comes from behind and tosses his own son over the top rope to the floor. Ray and Dominic have some friendly words as Ray celebrates in the ring. We see some of Bobby Lashley's comments on WWE Champion Brock Lesnar from last week's WWE After the Bell podcast episode with Corey Graves. The announcers send us to a nice video package on Lashley vs Lesnar now, with a look back at what they did before WWE, and what they've done since coming to WWE. We get a look back at Alexa Bliss destroying the office of her therapist last week. We will see more of Bliss' journey back to Raw tonight. Back to commercial. Back from the break and we see what happened earlier with The Miz, Maryse, Edge, and Beth Phoenix. Kevin Patrick stops the It couple for comments backstage. Miz says it took just one shot to take Beth down. They go on talking trash and Miz remembers next week is Maryse's birthday. He goes on and says before they take out the Grit couple at the Rumble, next week he's going to throw the biggest birthday party extravaganza for Maryse because he loves her. They celebrate and kiss to end the segment. We go back to Alexa Bliss with her therapist in his office. He welcomes her back and says he's happy to say there are a lot less breakable things in the office this week. She's not so sure about that. He will continue to see her as a patient this week but he can't tolerate a repeat of last week. He apologizes for triggering her, but says he had to see where she was at, and promises she will be in a much better place after this is all done. The doc wants to do some one-word association now. The first word is trust, Lily. Friend, Lily. Home, Lily. Doll, Lily. Imaginary. Bliss gets up and stares the man down after he asks her about this word. He looks at his watch and says time is up. Bliss sits back down and exhales as the doctor leaves. Bobby Lashley vs Seth Rollins. We go back to the ring for tonight's main event as Bobby Lashley makes his way out with MVP. He hits the corner to pose as the pyro goes off. Back to commercial. Back from the break and out comes Seth Rollins as Lashley and MVP stare him down. The announcers hype Lashley vs WWE Champion Brock Lesnar and Rollins vs WWE Universal Champion Roman Reigns at the Rumble. The bell rings and here we go. They have words and taunt each other. Rollins with a headlock in the middle of the ring. They run the ropes and Lashley shows Rollins up with a shoulder. Rollins grabs from behind but Lashley drops him. Rollins with a sling blade and a quick pedigree attempt but Lashley backdrops him. Lashley goes on and makes an early hurtlock attempt but Rollins slides free, sending Lashley to the floor. Rollins runs the ropes and is a suicide dive but Lashley slows the impact and is still on his feet. Rollins returns to the ring for another dive but this time Lashley catches him and launches him on the floor with a big throw. Lashley stands tall at ringside as the referee checks on Rollins. Back to commercial. Back from the break and Rollins has Lashley down in the corner, slamming his leg into the ring post as MVP looks on and the referee warns him with a count. Rollins slams the leg into the post again. Rollins returns to the ring and goes to work on the legs in the corner some more as the referee counts. Rollins drags Lashley to the middle of the ring and continues focusing on Lashley's legs and specifically his knees. Rollins with a submission now, taunting Lashley in his face. MVP cringes at ringside as Rollins really puts a hurt on Lashley's leg and knee in the middle of the ring, turning the hold into a single leg crab now. Rollins sits up on the knee and continues to ground Lashley. Lashley tries to power up and out of the hold. He sends Rollins to the floor but Rollins runs right back in, missing the stomp. Lashley counters and plants Rollins face first into the mat as MVP cheers him on from ringside. They both get up and go at it but Lashley strikes first. Lashley with two big belly-to-belly suplexes and a neck breaker. Rollins counters a suplex but Lashley stays on him, driving him face first into the mat from his shoulders. Rollins kicks out just in time and Lashley can't believe it. Lashley sells the leg injury but he charges first for a spear but Rollins gets his knee up. Rollins with a rolling elbow to the face. Rollins charges but blocks a power slam attempt, sending Lashley into the turnbuckles. Rollins follows up with the pedigree in the middle of the ring but Lashley kicks out just in time. Rollins shows a bit of frustration now. Fans do dueling chants now. Rollins goes to the top but Lashley grabs him by the throat. Lashley climbs to the top with Rollins but Rollins elbows him several times. Lashley overpowers and launches Rollins from the top with a massive overhead superplex. Everyone is amazed at what Lashley has just done. Lashley is at ringside now preparing his next move when Shelton Benjamin and Cedric Alexander suddenly attack him. They beat Lashley up at ringside as the referee calls for the disqualification. Winner by DQ, Bobby Lashley. After the bell, Lashley tries to fight off Benjamin and Alexander but they double team him and send him into the ring post. They talk trash in Lashley's face, then send him back into the ring post a few times. Rollins watches from ringside as Lashley blocks a double suplex on the floor, then launches his former teammates with a double suplex of his own on the floor. Lashley grabs Alexander and drives him face first into the ring post. Lashley stalks Benjamin now and puts him through the barrier with a big spear for a pop from the crowd. Rollins watches from the turnbuckles now, amazed at what he's seeing Lashley do to Benjamin and Alexander. SmackDown Tag Team Champions the Usos suddenly hop the barrier from the crowd, rushing the ring to wait on Rollins. Rollins turns around to see the Usos but they flatten him with a double superkick. The Usos back up the ramp with their fingers in the air as their music hits. Rollins recovers on the mat in the ring while Lashley looks on from ringside. Raw goes off the air with the Usos standing tall on the ramp, telling Rollins they will see him at the Rumble.